Okay guys, gonna try and make a little short video. My friend Alan sent me 2 or 3 pictures that we'll put at the start of this video about some of the flooding and some of the high water that's going on in Kansas. The last time I made a Why a Farm video, I was over on that far hill over there. Today I'm on the south hill between the 2 river valleys, the Buttermilk Creek and the Wolf River Valley. I showed you those 2 valleys the other day when the water was high, and things are still wet. But the purpose of the video, I wanted to share with you guys 2 stories. There's a cemetery there, and on the back is trusty Lieutenant Dolly. 2 stories. In '84, I was 13 years old, and at the start of June, a flood came along and wiped both of these valleys. It was a severe flood. And I remember as a 13-year-old using 2.5 gallon jugs, that were empty, as floating things, life preservers. I would hold the handles in my hand, and I swam across the valley, both of these valleys. And water just covered these valleys and it wiped the crop clean. We'd already planted at that point. That was a formative experience. And the other formative experience is this field right behind me. Hopefully the air is not bothering the microphone too bad, but it's wheat this year, and surprisingly the wheat is not looking too bad. There's the Wolf River, or the Buttermilk Valley behind me. Anyway, this wheat field, I can't remember when, but it was sometime back in the early 90s. We had a wet year similar to this, and I was working the ground, and I hadn't planted yet, and it got to be the 3rd week of June. And I thought that time was a crisis, and so I went out on a Sunday when it was just hot and humid, and I worked that wheat field there, and I planted 3/4 of it. And I was about 3/4 of the way through, and a thunderstorm came and just wailed on me. Anyway, after that thunderstorm, the weather pattern changed, and high pressure came in, cool, dry air from the north came in. And I came back 4 days later and planted that last quarter of that field. And the quarter that I planted after that rainfall event yielded perfectly. I bet it made 60 or 70 bushel to the acre. Anyway, I took more off that quarter than I did off the 3/4 of the field that I'd planted right before the rain. And the reason for that was, when you plant right before a rain like that, when the ground was kind of wet to begin with, you had a huge crust. And so I came out with the rotary hoe and was trying to break the crust, and I broke the crust a little bit, but I also succeeded to I managed to bring a huge flush of foxtail. And there was no way, I took a field that was relatively clean and crusted slightly and turned it into a solid foxtail disaster. And knowing what I know now, I probably would have went and worked that up and tried to replant it. But I did not do that. Let the weeds go, and so 3/4 of that field was just a weedy mess. And so patience and a 4-day wait period made the difference between success or failure. And so patience is a lesson that we all have to learn. And it's kind of a hard lesson for some of us. I know it was for me. Learning patience and how to move within cycles and the flows, and not trying to force a situation. That's been a hard lesson for me. But we're getting smarter. So this alfalfa field, I mowed this yesterday, and awful wet underneath there, but it's the 1st of June and it's time to get the first cutting alfalfa all finished, and so we're pushing it. Anyway, working away, guys. We're all in the Corn Belt here. We're all in adversity, and we're all fighting this cool, wet weather and doing the best we can. And so my advice is to just keep working and be patient, and keep your costs low, and try and mimic nature with the diversity. The wheat has some disease in it, of course, because it's been raining when the wheat was blooming over the last week and a half. But all in all, it doesn't look too bad. If the rain stops here for a sec, or the wind stops, there's the wheat field. Flag leaves look relatively good considering all the moisture that we've had. So thanks guys, talk to you later.